Well, now that the modeling is pretty much done, let's begin UV mapping the different parts of the character. Now, UV mapping is needed when we're going to add a texture to the object. If we just use a material, just a simple color, we may not need to add a texture. But I'd like to add an image of stripes on the shirt here. If we bring back the reference images here, you can see that we've just got a couple of stripes on the shirt. And that's all I want, is just some sort of design there on the shirt. And to do that, we're going to need to apply some sort of image to the object. And we can only do that really with a texture. And we can control the placement of that image if we use an image rather than just materials. And a good way to think about UV mapping is the idea of clothes, actually, where clothes begin as two-dimensional objects, as pieces of fabric. And they are assembled into a three-dimensional garment by sewing together seams. So what we can do here is we can simulate the placement of seams in the clothing to pull these pieces apart and lay them out flat in the UV editor. And that's really all UV mapping is doing, is just cutting the 3D model apart and laying it flat so we can then apply two-dimensional textures. So what I'll do is maybe I'll take this edge right here. I'll click Alt and click that edge. And let's add a seam to this. And to do that, you can go to the Edges menu and mark Seam, or you can press Control E and choose Mark Seam here. So now that we've done that, if we deselect that, you can see we've added this red line to that edge, and that is going to be our seam. That's where Blender is going to separate this object apart and attempt to lay it out flat. Let's do that on the other side too. I'll Alt-click this edge, press Control E, and mark Seam. All right, so we have two seams there. Let's see what happens when we unwrap this and lay it out flat. Before I do that, though, let me just go back to object mode, press the N key, and take a look at our scale and our rotation. And I'm going to go ahead and apply those so there's zeros in rotation and ones in the scale. With the object selected, I'll press Control A and apply the rotation and scale. And there we go. So we've got zeros and ones. And so when Blender tries to cut this part of the object and lay it out flat, it isn't fighting against any rotation or non-uniform scale. All right, let's go over to the UV editing screen layout, and it automatically changed it into edit mode here. Here's our UV layout, and this is where we're going to try and lay these objects flat as UV islands. All right, so if we just select this shirt here, I'll just hover over it and press the L key. Let's try and unwrap this. I'm going to press U to bring up the UV mapping window and click Unwrap. And there it is. So what we've done here is we've split or cut the shirt here, and it's opened it up and laid it out flat. Here's the neck of the shirt here, the shoulders, the sleeves out here. It's just laid it out flat, and it's done a pretty good job here. But I think what I'd like to do is add one more seam. One more seam up here along the shoulder. So I'll hold Alt and click this edge and press Control E and mark Seam. And I'll also do the same over here. Alt-click, Control E, and mark Seam. Now with these in place, let's select that shirt one more time. I'll press the L key. And notice down here in this Select Linked panel, none of these delimiters have been selected. If I click the seam one, you can see that we don't get this side selected. Only this side that has been bounded by these seams. So I'll press Shift and click this to turn that off for now. So we select the whole shirt. All right, so let's try it again. Let's press U and unwrap. And there we go. Now we've got the two parts of the shirt separated out. And I think this will be easier to work with as we try and place that image of the stripes on the shirt. Now we can come over here and hover over each one of these and turn it. I could press R and hold the Control key down and turn it 90 degrees. do the same thing over here. Well, I better press Alt-A and then the L key, R, Control, and you can see up in the upper left-hand corner the rotation or the degrees as I'm turning this. So I'll make it 90 degrees. And there we go. Now we've got the two pieces of the shirt UV mapped. Now something we should do here is check to see if we have any stretching or if we have unacceptable stretching. And the reason why we don't want any stretching in our UV maps is because any stretching in the UV map will also add stretching to our texture. So it will be stretched in ways that isn't realistic or at all wanted. So we need to just add a material to this and add a UV test pattern so we can see how this is doing. To do that, I'm going to pull this down right up here, hover over this corner and just pull it down and create a new window. And in this new window, I will switch to a shader editor. I'll hit the N key to close this panel. Now what let's do is create a new material for our character. And this is just a test material to be used as we're UV mapping. I'm going to come up here and click New. There's our new material. It's called Material. If we go over here to the Materials panel, you can see the same thing is here. We're just viewing it in a different way over here. Now what let's do is create a new texture. I'm going to press Shift-A in this window and create a texture, image texture. And here we go. I'll just click it right here. And I want to make this texture a test pattern. So I'll click New. I'll change the name to UV test pattern. And let's change this generated type from blank to UV grid. Now let's click OK. Now you can see that grid here. I feel like I should also change the name of that material. Let's call this UV test material. There we go, and you can see it updated over here. Now if we take this color, drag it over to the base color of the material, we don't see anything. Why not? Well, we just need to click over here to the viewport shading, and now you can see that checker pattern. So this checker pattern is going to tell us if things are way out of line, if things are stretched too much. So let's say we just select a few of these UVs here on the sleeve, and then we click G and we pull out. Now look at the texture in the 3D view. You can see that our squares on our test pattern are not square anymore. They're stretched and squished, and that's something that we do not want to see. We want to see these squares be nice and uniform throughout the object. Let me press Control-Z here to take that back. So we want to see these nice uniform squares. And every once in a while, we're going to see a little bit of stretching here. You see how this square is a little bit bigger maybe than this square. We're going to see that sometimes. But generally speaking, that's okay. It's the drastic stretching that we just saw that you do not want. All right, in the next video, let's go through the same process for the shorts and the socks.